Hello there. Welcome to the Threads of Legacy, the Pine Forge Academy story, which is a special podcast series presented by the National Pine Forge Academy Alumni Association. As we begin to celebrate our 80 years of Pine Forge Academy, my name is Charles Battles, class of 1970, and I also served as history teacher, social studies teacher for 9 years from 1975 to 1984. I'll be your host today. And in this episode of Threads of Legacy, it's going to capture some of the stories, memories, and experiences of a unique Pine Forge Academy alumni whose life is a part of this tapestry of our rich history. I have the pleasure of speaking with Lloyd Watson. As you see on the screen, he's from the class of 63. Thank you, Lloyd, for joining us, and thank you for consenting to be interviewed. Well, let's start from the beginning. Can you share with us a little background about yourself, who you are?
Okay, simply, my name is Lloyd R. Watson II, not to be confused with my uncle, who's the first and a dean of the school at the boys' dormitory, and my son, Lloyd Roger III. I was a graduate of the class of 1963, as you mentioned, and some of my classmates were Walter Pearson, Clifton Davis, Cynthia Poole, Michael Jones, Elizabeth Darby Watson, Jimmy Hurt, Frank McCrae, Janice and Joy Tivey, to name a few. I currently reside in Auburn, California, which is about 30 miles north of Sacramento. And I'm currently retired from the University of California, San Francisco, most recently as a procurement professional. I was there about 20 years.
Now, you mentioned some names, and like I said, we're family. Every last one of those names that you mentioned, I know them or I heard about them. So, as they say, this is a great Pine Forge Academy family. And you're currently residing in California. I grew up in California. And it looked like we switched coast. I'm currently residing on the East Coast, and you're residing there on the West Coast. All right. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey to Pine Forge? How did you end up at our alma mater, Pine Forge, Pennsylvania?
Well, basically, I was a preacher's kid, and my father, back in 1951, was transferred or called to Pine Forge to be their principal. Um, it was a journey from a town in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, and we traveled to Pine Forge. I saw the school basically as a place I grew up in. As the school grew, I grew. Um, I'm not sure if there's any symbolism there, but there's a connection for me personally. It was started in 1946. I was born in 1945. So the school is 1 year younger than I am, or I'm 1 year older than it is. Um, but it was a unique place, and I was very, very happy to grow up there. It was in the country, and it was at a time when you're free and you roam and you go about, and that's what I did as a child.
Okay.
So that's how I was brought to the school.
Can you share some of your first impressions of Pine Forge as a child?
Well, as I mentioned, the expanse of the place, it was to a child's mind and a child's body and as a person, it was just a huge place. There were no boundaries. We had the ability to go and explore everything. We would go down to the creek, the Manatawny. We would go up and down the creek, uh, up way above the campus, and then way below the campus, we would explore. We'd be in the woods, we'd be in the fields, we'd be in the corn crib, the hayloft, wherever our minds took us and our bodies would carry us, that's where we went. The only restriction I remember was when my father would whistle, that meant I had to come home. And
Right.
typically in the summertime when we were out a lot, it was towards sunset, so you could rip and race all day long. And when the whistle came, when you start whistling, you had to be lickety split home pretty quick.
Right.
The other impression I had, um, the campus as the most students see it now was different. It was a rather confined space, centered primarily from the manor house in the top of that hill, where the manor house was the north hall, uh, which was also served as a girls' dorm and a cafeteria in the lower portion. And then they had some buildings around that where faculty members stayed, and where the laundry was, where the young ladies would do the laundry there, and everybody sent their laundry to the laundry itself, and the girls would oftentimes iron their boyfriend's shirt, stuff like that. They would press them with the old flat iron, and they were very careful to do it correctly, and that was a big deal, in the campus at that time. Um,
Now, those buildings, most of those buildings are still there. Like you mentioned, the Manor House, North Hall, the laundry, that the white building behind the Manor House and North Hall, and then the other stone building. Those buildings are still there.
are they still standing?
Yeah, those at the top of the hill right there, but
Right,
Manor House, those buildings are still there.
right, right. And then behind those buildings, there was a concrete stairway that went down the hill, past the chapel on the left, and then it crossed the street and then went down to the old mill, the old grist mill. And there was a ravine where I suspect the Manatawny was routed that would drive the mill, that would grind the corn and wheat, whatever they were grinding there. And that's where the students went to school. Um, it was a rather old building when they were there, and we had the opportunity, I guess, after they moved out, to go there as in elementary school for a couple of years.
Now
Uh,
those buildings are gone. I remember the white chapel there at the bottom of the hill, like you said, right down the stairwell. I believe that concrete stairwell is still
it's still
there. It's
there. Yeah.
shown by grass and things, but the old chapel is no longer there. And then the first school, like you said, which was the mill, there are parts of the wall that are there, but in the trees and all that. But I remember that as a student as well. That those buildings that stood.
Yeah. The white building on the right as you cross the street, the duplex, where different faculty members would live, was which is no longer there. It was a duplex that had one side. I remember Charles Jones stayed there. He was an early music teacher. Then Paul Jones probably stayed there as well. And on the opposite side, it seemed to be the minister stayed there for some reason. I believe Elder or Captain, oh boy, his name escapes me now. But Elder Tivy stayed there, Elder Newman stayed there, and I think a family of Fordham stayed there at one point in time. But that was the people who stayed on that street. Um,
which is Douglas Drive. To
is
put
that what
the
it's called now, Douglas Drive?
Yeah, that's what it is today. To put it in context for people who are not familiar with the old campus of Pine Forge, that was
Right.
along Douglas Drive. Yes.
Now the old chapel, the white building, was a barn originally, and when we were first there, they still stored tractors in the bottom of it, and they had the chapel in the upper level, um, and it was used for, I guess, that dual purpose for a while until they had other buildings put up to accommodate some of the tractors, stuff like that. But Pine Forge was basically a farm for a lot of years initially, and they did farming activity. They raised more or less feed crop as opposed to stuff that was for human consumption. And I don't know for a fact, but I suspect they sold to the ranchers around the area to make extra, income like that. But they were part of a community of farmers in the area, most of them being ranchers.
All right. Do you have a favorite memory of Pine Forge as you look back?
There are a lot of things that come to my mind. I guess in terms of favorites, I think about the twins. There's an issue of twins. It seemed like there were the Ford brothers who were probably graduated with, I think, Paul Jones back in the 40s, late 40s when the school first started. Then my uncle had twin girls later in the 50s. There was a set of Acosta's twin girls who were there in the mid 50s. There were the Tybee twins. And then there were the Anderson twins, Ida and Ronnie from Pittsburgh. So for some reason, we seem to have had a lot of twins in the history. I'm not sure how many have come after us, but I'm sure there are
Yes. My,
some
my
more.
my first year teaching when I returned in 75, my first class, I had 4 twins. I had the two Ford twins, Donna and Debbie Ford,
Oh, wow.
and I had Jose and his brother Andre Wagner.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had 2 sets of different twins, and at the beginning it was confusing to me, but I was finally able to distinguish them as well. So yeah, I had twins there as a teacher, so I can
That's
relate.
that's interesting.
Okay,
Now go on.
influential people.
No, go on. I'm sorry.
Uh, were you okay? Do you have something else to say about the memories? I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Well, the memories. Um, one of the things about Pine Forge, I think there were people in the community, and I remember specifically the Keiths. Um, they often would take children from Philadelphia specifically, and um, I don't know what their arrangement was, but they would have them who would come and stay with them, and they would go to school there. Um, I suspect because of the economics, it was less expensive to bring them and have them stay with either a family member or a friend, and then they would go to school. And so we had a lot of students like that who would come and stay in the community and then go to school, at the academy. And that was kind of fascinating. I met a lot of people like that. in my stay there.
All right. Influential people. I know there were a lot of people that were influential in your life. If you want to share a few of them and how they became uh, attached to you.
Well, my thought has always been that Pine Forge was the center of the universe.
Okay.
That was my mindset, and I suspect it was that because we were there where the conference was, Allegheny, and it was a big black conference. It started probably in '45, if I'm not mistaken, and
Oh,
so it was starting up and growing, and being the center of the conference, a lot of people came through. A lot of ministers would come through, a lot of Bible workers, a lot of uh, people within the conference would be coming through there for meetings and stuff like that. So we saw people as a child, as a student. We saw big names in the church who would come through there, and you begin to recognize them. They recognize you, and so it's it's a it's a way of letting you know that you are somebody. You belong to a group of somebodies, who um, have influence.
mhm.
It's like being, I guess, in Jerusalem when King David was on the throne, or Solomon was on the throne. If you lived in Jerusalem, that was a big deal. So
Mhm.
being at Pine Forge, where the conference was, that was a big deal. I can remember Elder Brooks. I can remember Elder Cleveland, Elder Bradford, Elder Lester, uh, the Faithful Day Quartet, and Elder Fagel.
Okay.
I remember Eric B. Hare, who was a missionary to Burma, if I'm not mistaken, and he was famous for his stories. He had recordings of it, and he came and stayed and was in my sister's bedroom where he stayed at the time. But this kind of influence kind of gives you a sense of uh, this Seventh Day Adventist environment is not a small kind of thing. It has some depth and breadth to it, and you were part of something. Uh, but on a more personal note, the people that influenced me on a day to day basis, I suspect, was Brother Handy, Robert Handy. I call him Uncle Bobby because my cousin was his uncle. Um, he was the farm manager and the industrial arts teacher.
Mhm.
Uh, I gave him a lot of frustration, I'm sure, as I was growing up, and as he was directing me more directly when I worked for him. There was Mrs. Gresham. She was the girls' dean back in the probably mid 50s. Uh, Very personable person, someone I really liked. There was Lavera Higgs Tillman, who recently passed. She was a second mother to me, basically. They tell me the story that she used to take me to school, elementary school, uh, but walk me to school on occasion like that. She was also the paymaster when we worked in the summertime. We would work 6 days, primary Sunday through Friday at 2 o'clock, and we'd go up to the administration building. And she'd pass out $2 to each of us who were working, and boy, we were happy to get that $2.
Spending money. Yeah.
Hey, that would last all week. That $2.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was a big influence. Uh, I think of Mrs. McGrew, who was our class sponsor, as well as Elder Tivy. Clarence Nimhart, who was our science teacher, uh, very knowledgeable guy, very personable, down to earth, trying to, convey and help us learn our lessons. Paul Jones, the math teacher,
Yes, yes, Mr. Jones.
quiet, tall guy, just gifted in teaching, gifted in teaching. And Mr. Anthony, he was an influence, a real big influence. Uh, I always wanted to be in the choir, never quite made it. Uh,
Okay.
my mother asked him, and I think he was as diplomatic as he could, responded, well, he may develop into a singer, down the road.
Okay.
And so, you kind of take that with a pound of salt and kind of keep on moving. But some of those are the people who impressed me, and kind of their memory and their advice and their interaction with them stayed with me over the years.
Yeah, those names that you shared, it's like I knew them, but I didn't. But their names, that legacy, the names of Mr. Jones, Mr. Anthony, Mr. Handy, Miss Gresham. I knew her personally later on during
You
camp.
know her.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I knew her. And of course, Mr. Jones was my math teacher as well. But some of the others, it's the names that have been passed on orally that
Right.
their significance was influential in your life. But their names lived in my life, even though I didn't know many of them myself.
One of the things I remember about Mr. Anthony, I was listening to a program on PBS, and they were talking about the Jubilee Singers, and they were going through the history of the school of Fisk, and how the Jubilee Singers came in to save it, and how they took them on the road, and they went from town to town singing and trying to raise money to help the school. And at the end of the program, as they were closing, as the credits were coming up, the choir starts to sing. And as I listened to it, Charles, it was Pine Forge's choir.
Isn't that in something?
It was
Yeah.
Pine Forge's choir. The sound, the acapella, and then it dawned on me that Mr. Anthony had gone to Fisk after he graduated from PUC.
Mm-hmm.
He went there and took his master's degree. So he was influenced by them. And when he came to Pine Forge, he influenced Pine Forge in their music history. It was just powerful that we are all connected. It's just a matter of figuring out where the connections are.
You're right. So true. So true. Now I see two pictures on the wall. The top picture and then the bottom picture. A little off script, but anyway, since you mentioned you're the son of one of the principals and you mentioned his name, can you share with the our family who those individuals on your wall there in your study are?
The top one is my father, Ercel I. Watson, and my mother, Ruth Gwendolyn Genevieve Winston Watson.
Okay.
He was the principal from 51 to 61. He went to Oakwood, took an associate degree, went to Delaware State, got his bachelor's. While he was in Dover managing 6 churches, he snuck off to Howard and got a master's. And then finally he took a doctor of education from University of Pennsylvania in about 62. My mother, She worked primarily as a secretary at the conference. She worked at Wright Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And then later in her life, she worked at the Pennsylvania Conference and did some medical missionary work with some different clients in the community there in Reading. Very gifted person speaking. I have some of her writings, and as you look at your parents in retrospect, not as a child, not as an adult even, but as you go over some of their writings, it's remarkable how well written she was, how well spoken she was. She wasn't a forceful person, kind of shy, but was able to get up and speak well. She was Sabbath school superintendent in a church for many years, and uh, her records, her writings, just beautiful to watch, to look at, and read. Just very insightful stuff.
Yeah, as a student, I remember the name once again, Elder Ercel I. Watson. As you mentioned, he served principal, probably he was the longest serving principal at Pine Forge Institute at that time. And so he's the longest serving principal that we've had at Pine Forge. And I've
Right.
heard a lot of outstanding things of him being an administrator at the academy. We've had good ones, but it seems that the name Ercel Watson kind of is up there a little bit higher than many of the others. And I know as a principal's son, there are probably stories that you could tell as well, but time won't permit us. uh, what do you feel has made Pine Forge unique and different?
One of the things I think, Pine Forge came about at a time when there was a lot of racial unrest. There was a history of uh, turmoil and disaffection among whites and blacks during the 40s, clearly, and then beyond that. But in the church, there was a big turmoil about this issue, this race issue, and the church developed the regional conferences. They began to develop the support mechanism, such as the schools. And Pine Forge, I think, was one of the first uh, boarding academies, black boarding academies that the church experienced. Um, One of the things I think that is critical is that while they were looking to educate and prepare the students uh, to inhabit the world in which we live, their primary focus, their primary goal was eternity, the next world, God's kingdom, preparing the students to live in a sin infested world, but being prepared to go to the kingdom that's coming, Jesus' second coming. That was the primary focus. The academic preparation, while it's helpful, it's useful, the industrial preparation, the ability to work and support yourself is fine. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not the primary purpose. That was not the purpose of the school. It was to prepare workers for the church and prepare the student to go to heaven. That was the goal. That was the purpose of the school.
Okay. What lessons from Pine Forge have stayed with you after graduating?
Punctuality, uh, work ethic, being able to work, recognizing that there's nothing wrong with honest work, whether you are uh, mowing lawns on the campus, whether you're working in the business office, whether you're out on the tractor, whether you're painting a wall, whatever your hands find to do, you need to be able to do it with, with the best of your ability. Um, we can't all be doctors, lawyers, or Indian chiefs, but wherever we find ourselves, we need to give it our best, because it's not only for the employer we're working for, but it's for the Lord. He teaches us that we need to work as if we're working for Him directly, and so we always need to give our best.
Great, great, great. Well, what has life been like for you after leaving Pine Forge?
Life can be rough. Life can be disappointing. Life can be filled with a lot of challenges, and you recognize that. And I think one of the things you come away with, hey, I didn't get what I wanted, but God has blessed me. God has kept me. Um, like the Bible says, they haven't seen his seed go hungry or go without home, stuff like that, without protection. God sticks by us, and
Sure does.
we must keep that in mind. We must keep that in mind. But I've had I have 6 children. I have 5 grandchildren. So I'm a happy man.
Praise
I'm a
God.
happy.
Praise
Yeah.
God. What words would you like to share with the current students of Pine Forge Academy today?
Words. The the quote that comes to my mind is simply, higher than the highest human thought can reach is God's ideal for His children. Godliness, Godlikeness is the goal to be reached. That's still the aim. That's still the goal. And no matter what we do, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you're going, no matter what you want to accomplish, that's the goal you keep in mind.
Great, great, great. Now, as we start this 80th celebration of Pine Forge Academy this alumni weekend, and the theme has been Threads of Legacy. What does being part of the Pine Forge legacy mean to you?
It's a family. Like you said, you know different members of the family, you know the names. You may not know all the stories or all the details, but you know the names. Wherever you go, um, and you meet a fellow alum, you have a connection. You have a brother. You have a sister. When I was at the funeral for Miss Tillman, I came across an old, not a classmate, but a former student, and we were talking about Pine Forge, and we were talking about how when Pine Forge would go to Oakwood for college days, how they would just kind of come alive and just blow up the whole campus, and
Right.
everybody would be looking at them. Why is Pine Forge doing all this rah 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 kind of stuff? And as we were sitting there talking about that, we start between the two of us, we start chanting about Pine Forge, and the people around us are kind of, what's wrong with them, basically. But it's that kind of brotherhood, sisterhood that you enjoy when you come across an alum, no matter who you are, where you are. It's instant connection. It's instant sharing thoughts and memories that you can share right there in that spot.
Yeah, that camaraderie you can't find anyplace else.
Can't beat it. Can't beat it.
Now, final reflections as we begin to bring this interview to a close. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the Pine Forge Academy family who's watching?
I guess the thing would be to continue holding up the standard of the school. Uh, Always recognize and remember that you represent the school and represent God, and you want to represent both of them to the best of your ability. Always put your best foot forward. Always be on your best behavior. Always shine for the green and white.
And final sentence. Can you finish the sentence? Pine Forge Academy is
still the center of the universe.
Awesome. Thank you, Lloyd, for sharing your story. As you said, your atypical story, your different story. Adding your thread to the Pine Forge tapestry. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Threads of Legacy, the Pine Forge Academy story. And as we celebrate our 80th year of Pine Forge Academy, we're reminded that our legacy is not built by buildings alone, but by the lives, faith, friendships, and service of generations of Falcons. And until next time, keep the legacy alive, stay connected, and remember, once a Falcon, always a Falcon. This has been Charles Battles, class of 1970, signing off.